Today's Patreon shoutout goes to Z. Niv Mizzet Supreme versus Ghalta and Mavren, Omnath, and Sidisi. Got the World Tree to fix our colours, but that's about the most interesting thing we've got going there. We want to be getting into ramp really, we've got plenty of it in the deck. Alright, that is looking better, that's pretty much nothing but ramp. It's a Spellslinger deck, so we've got plenty of means of making tokens with something like the Sedgemoor Witch. So we keep that one. Birds of Paradise on turn 1 from the Dinosaur player. We draw into Decimate, which we'll be able to cast into the Sedgemoor Witch most likely, so just start off with a tap land. Llanowar Elves for Omnath. Lightning Greaves from the Celestia player goes on to the Birds of Paradise. Okay, and that's a Eureka moment for us, so yeah, probably still get down the Sedgemoor Witch next turn so that we can start casting these instants and sorceries into it. So that means it's Tropical Island, and we'll go for another Tricycle Land with the Nature's Law. Now Omnath managing to get down a Sol Ring into a Doubling Cube, 3 cards left in hand. Don't have an enchantment for the Decimate yet. There is a Canker Bloom, which we would hope would go on the Lightning Greaves. Have to be wary of that if we want to go for the Mirari's Wake anytime soon. Alright, well there's the enchantment. That's Decimate worthy. Our opponents are going pretty quick here, but hopefully we'll be able to slow them down. Just wondering if we bother going for the Sedgemoor Witch. Maybe they'll point some removal at each other. It would be good to see the back of this. Drawing into our basics, which I don't like, because we do have Cultivate and Kodama's Reach and a means of copying instants and sorceries in the deck, so yeah, we'll go Sedgemoor Witch. We can get down another Tricycle Land with the Misty Rainforest. Uro, Titan of Nature's Wrath for the Sidisi player. Vernal Bloom will double up, yeah, that's forests. We actually, a means of fixing the colours in 5 colour decks, what I like to do is include all forests, so I can go for things like Skyshroud Claim and Nature's Law. So a lot of our jewels are going to be forests, which will work out very nicely with the Vernal Bloom. I have a feeling that it won't survive the next turn through the Aura Shards though. So there is the Omnath. And then the Canker Bloom, 3 damage over to Sidisi. Only 1 card left in Omnath's hand. Each of these jewels tapping for 2 mana thanks to the Vernal Bloom. And that allows a Trostani Celestia's Voice into play. And that's going to trigger the Aura Shard, so I'm hoping that he goes for something other than Vernal Bloom. Yeah, going for the Doubling Cube, that's excellent. So that will free our Decimate up to go after that Lightning Greaves, I think, would be good. And the land can be the Freshly Laid Ancient Tomb, I think. And in response, we see the Canker Bloom. This is why I waited a turn on the Decimate, because we're seeing the stuff getting used here, the interaction getting used. So the Canker Bloom getting sacrificed to get rid of the Aura Shards. That does mean that we can... I'll probably get down the Mirari's Wake next turn and then Decimate the Vernal Bloom, because I bet the single card in this player's hand is going to be some kind of means of refilling his hand. Anyway, Doubling Cube and Aura Shards go down. If it was just myself and the Omnath player that were going to be benefiting from the Vernal Bloom, then I'd probably leave it alone, but we're at risk of seeing the big Ghalta come into play over here, so giving this player double mana, probably not a good idea. Okay, a Dockside Extortionist for us would only be 3 treasures. Obviously just lost an artifact and an enchantment, so we'll not bother with that for now. Drop the Plains, and that can be the Mirari's Wake, which will give us even more mana. Just wondering now if we could have gone for Eureka Moment. Have I accidentally left up blue mana? No, I haven't. I thought this brought the land into play tapped, but it actually is untapped, so might have been able to go for Eureka Moment if I'd left up the blue mana. Anyway, we'll go for Decimate. I have 6 mana floating now thanks to the enchantment, and that can be Lightning Greaves, Omnath, Vernal Bloom, and Ancient Tomb we are targeting. Triggers the Sedgemoor Witch to make a pest token, and our creatures are getting a +1/+1 buff from the Wake as well, of course. Alright, so absolutely no point in going for the Dockside here. I will spread the love a little bit. Let's go down the left at the Sidisi player, because I didn't remove any of his stuff. So it's just a case of hoping that our opponents have gone too fast here. Well, we've gone a bit too fast ourselves apparently. A Meat Hut Massacre is going to take out the Sedgemoor Witch. It's going to leave the Tristani in play, curiously. We gain a life to the Pest, and yeah, they gain 4 life to the Meat Hut Massacre here. I think that might have been a little bit of a hasty board wipe there if they couldn't take out everything. Does take our opponents down on a little bit of mana though. The mono-green player not getting down Omnath, curiously. Could have afforded to recast the Omnath quite comfortably, but just dropping a land and passing. The Lightning Greaves immediately being replaced by Swiftfoot Boots. The mana really being hurt by this player over here, which is what you ultimately have to do with Ghalta and Mavren. So Tristani being protected again, and we are being punished for blowing up the stuff, so 2 damage to that. Alright, so hopefully going to get through to our main phase with the double mana. There is the Kodama's Reach. So let's drop the mountain, make use of this double mana. I want to float 5 colourless, or the 5 colours, so that we can get our commander down, but if we can go Eureka Moment as well, that would obviously be useful. So yeah, we've got the 5 colourless mana we need there. Let's play the Eureka Moment, just in case we want to do something else other than our commander. Alright, so that allows us to play out the Spara's headquarters, so we do ramp a little bit more. Yeah, we're just going to continue to ramp here and hope that we keep our Niv Mizzet in play. So we've got a white mana floating. Yeah, we can't go for jumpstart on anything because we only have 3 mana here, so it can be Kodama's Reach, I think. Probably a good idea to set up for some means of non-basic land hate, like a Blood Moon or something, which we're not going to see this game, I wouldn't have thought. Don't think there's any red players at the table, is there? Could use the land as discard fodder for the Niv Mizzet as well. Need some means of refilling our hand, ultimately. So DC Brood Tyrant, and yeah, managing to hit a creature by the looks of it. Viconia hitting the bin. There's Agadeem's Awakening and Life from the Loam as well, playing out Sakura Tribelder. So sacrificing the Sakura Tribelder straight away will have us all lose a life to the Meat Hut Massacre. And that being in play does mean that we've got legal targets for the Decimate, so I don't think I'm too worried about getting rid of this, but I don't think you can cast Decimate without 4 legal targets. Omnath didn't do a single thing there, curiously, so now we see Acidic Slime likely goes on Mirari's Wake. I'll assume that they just drew into that. Still not sure why we didn't see Omnath hit play previously. Yep, getting rid of our Mirari's Wake. Just a tapped Radiant Grove for the Celestia player here, so really slowed these 2 players down by the looks of it, which is obviously very good for us. Alright, a Calamax. We're not going to be able to have it tapped, unfortunately. So are we just discarding Dockside Extortionist? It would be good to, yeah, get the jumpstart on this with a Calamax in play. Are we going to be able to swing in with it next turn though? Probably into Tristani. So in that case we'll go for the Decimate this turn so that I can hopefully go Eureka Moment being copied by Calamax. So it can be Swiftfoot Boots goes down, the Commander goes, Meat Hut Massacre, and we'll just go for a Tri-Land here as well. Discard Dockside to that because I don't think it's going to be too useful to us. So Decimate doing a hell of a lot of work for us this game. Meat Hut Massacre triggers one last time, so we each lose a life because the Commander went down there. And now we could go land into 3 visits into Calamax, but I do want some discard fodder, so go for Swamp and we'll get down the Dinosaur. And then, yeah, I'm not sure who the biggest threat is at the moment, to be honest. Sidisi has the most cards in hand, but if we can dissuade them from interfering with us, then we will do. We'll show that we're concentrating on the Omnath, and hopefully they'll let us keep doing that, assuming that they've got Go for the Throats in hand and things like that. There was an argument to be made for blowing up the Acidic Slime there so that we can get a Death Toucher out of the way so that Calamax can more likely swing in, but they might be able to play out Omnath and buff it enough for Calamax. Bajuka Bog coming down for Sidisi, so getting rid of that Eureka Moment. Should have gone for it when we had the chance apparently. So we're in top deck mode. Braider is a nightmare after that, with Token Fodder in tow. Slow Gurk the Overslime now. Braid's deciding to sacrifice a creature, so yeah, we're not going to do that. Which means Sidisi is probably going to go up quite a few cards here. Yep, goes from 2 all the way up to 5 because none of us sacked. Now Omnath coming into play, so I was maybe trying to dodge the Decimate that was in our bin. Sky Shroud Claim edging closer and closer to their commander. So if they drop just one land next turn, they'll have their commander in play. Alright, Practical Research, that's a pretty good draw, so we'll be discarding the 3 visits to that. That's a very good draw actually, so we're definitely going to tap down both of our creatures here, I think. Don't really have a means of buffing Niv Mizzet in this deck, maybe it'd be worth getting like double strike on it or something, although it'd still take 3 combats to get Niv Mizzet through for commander, so yeah, something to think about maybe. Down the middle with no reaches in the way. Calamax down to the right because there's no decent blocks they can make there. Thankfully there's no haste for the dinosaur player now after losing both of the footwear equipment. So there's an argument to be made for us going for 3 visits so that we can copy that twice and then we can do Practical Research on our opponent's turn and trigger the Calamax again, because it triggers on each turn, but we'll hopefully get into something relevant with Practical Research that we'll be able to cast here, so go for that. So Calamax triggering, we'll copy the Practical Research, we'll draw 4 cards, and a plus counter goes on the Calamax, so we draw 4 and discard 2, unless we discard an instant or sorcery, so we'll get rid of the can be the Counter Squall, I would think, would be alright. Don't think we're going to play Monastery Mentor, unfortunately, so maybe it'll be 3 visits instead. Don't know if we've made a land yet either, I can't remember. Anyway, yeah, Counter Squall is fine. And then we'll draw some more cards. And that's a bunch of lands, a Young Pyromancer and an Izzet Charm. So, instant or sorcery again, and it can be the Izzet Charm. Okay, have not made a land, so fixing everyone's green mana should be fine. Throw out the Yavimaya. Just have to make sure that we hold up both Izzet and Dimir mana if we go for the Monastery Mentor here, because we obviously want to be able to hold both of those up. So play the Monastery Mentor. We'll probably go for the Young Pyromancer next turn as well, and we'll just hope that we don't see more Graveyard Exile. But that Practical Research off the top really got us back into this, so that was a hell of a top deck for us. Life from the Loam, going to get back the Tri-land, a basic, and yeah, just the 2 lands with that. So I'm hoping they can't sacrifice the Bajuka Bog and keep fetching it back out. Wouldn't have thought they'd go for many sacrificing land shenanigans in Sidisi. It's just for the self-mill that they're going for the dredge stuff with. Just replaying Sidisi Brood Tyrant. Milling 3 cards, that is a couple of lands and an Agent of Shadow Thieves, so no creature, but they will trigger the Slogherk. So 2+ counters on that. And this is a 6/6 trample, so if it comes in towards us, there's not much point in making a Monastery Mentor token. Yeah, going for 9 damage onto us. So I have a feeling that all eyes are going to be on us somehow. We're just going to have to take the damage, I think. I was trying to concentrate on Omnath to keep our opponent from going after us, but apparently that's not going to work out, so I have to start doing some damage to Sidisi, I think. Slogherk being sacrificed to the Braids. Could have made a token in response to that, but not going to bother. In fact, I don't think we get a chance to make a token with the Braids. So with the Slogherk ability, they're grabbing back a Shock, a Jewel, and Command Tower, and then they've had some self-mill from somewhere, so the Sidisi's triggering. I'm not sure how that's happened, but Sidisi's on the stack, so Ayara hit the bin at some point. Oversold Cemetery did as well, and I'm guessing the Command Tower was part of that, so they get a zombie token is the point. Urban Burgeoning from Omnath, just continuing to make mana. Doesn't have anything to put the mana into by the looks of it. And it looks like Omnath is just deciding to float a bunch of mana, because that's obviously what you do with Omnath. So now a 5/5, and will that swing in towards us? Yep, the 5/5 Omnath comes in towards us as well, so I think we might have to just go for the loot on this. I imagine we're just going to see the commander over here, which we can de-spark next turn, so yeah, let's go for the Izzet Charm. Obviously get to look at more cards here, get rid of the forest, we've got a Yavimaya in play, and Calamax is going to get a plus counter, it's going to double up the Izzet Charm as well. Couldn't have dealt 4 damage to Omnath, it wouldn't have been relevant. Monastery Mentor going to make us some tokens though. So we've got our chump blocker here. Calamax will resolve and make another Izzet Charm. The mono green player tapping down the Sol Ring as well, which isn't mana he'll keep, I don't think. You just keep green mana. Okay, so that's an early harvest. Target player untaps all the basic lands they control, so targeting themselves with that, obviously. This is still during the attack phase, so maybe after giving Omnath trample. The Omnath now a 7/7. Calamax jumping up to a 6/6. Alright, there's a forest that we can ditch. Vega is some card advantage, so get rid of 3 visits, I think. And then Niv Mizzet Perun is excellent. Bring to Light, I'm hoping is going to be good as well. So let's get rid of the land, and maybe we can just go Bring to Light next turn and copy that with the Calamax. Yeah, I think D-Spark going in the bin is fine because we can hold that up during our opponent's turns. I definitely want to get down the Vega next turn. So we're going to chump block the Omnath. Alright, a Cleansing Nova going to destroy all creatures from the dinosaur player, so not managing to get into a land, I don't think. Does mean that our Calamax shenanigans are over, unfortunately. I was looking forward to doing some Bring to Light stuff into that. Does buy us some more time though, I think. So now it's round to our turn again after the board wipe, and that is an Escape to the Wilds. So, do we get down Niv Mizzet Perun? And we can't go Bring to Light. I think we're a land short on that. 3, 6, yeah, a land short. If I hadn't discarded a land, we could have done that. Bring to Light for the Archmage that draws a card on instants and sorceries would be good. So why don't we do some setting up here with Young Pyromancer and the Niv Mizzet. Make sure that I've got enough red mana first of all. Yeah, we actually don't have enough for Niv Mizzet and the Young Pyromancer. Omnath deciding to scoop on us. We have seen a decent number of instants and sorceries being cast, so hopefully Niv Mizzet will allow us to draw into some more cards thanks to that. Might as well set up with the Vega, ready for when we start going for Jumpstart on our stuff in the bin. But we're doing quite well here, considering the interaction that we're seeing. Uro being escaped from the bin. Getting rid of, we've seen Young Pyromancer be exiled, Ramunap, a Fetch, Oversold Cemetery, and Sakura Tribe Elder. The Life from the Loam is not in the bin either, so I'm not sure if they dredged that previously, or if they did it this turn, but I think it's in our opponent's hand. An Arcane Signet, haven't seen an instant or sorcery into the Perun yet. A Muldrifter being hard cast, so that's a 2/2 flyer, draw 2 cards, takes them back up to 7. Still only 6 mana for the Ghalta player by the looks of it. And going for the Anointed Procession, which will be very scary once the commander comes in. So it's round to our turn, and we draw into Exotic Orchard, which means that we get to ping something. Yeah, getting the Muldrifter out of the way this turn might be useful. So we drop the Exotic Orchard, which will tap for pretty much all of our colours, I think. Everything apart from red. So we could go for our commander into Young Pyromancer and hold up the D-Spark. I think we should be able to do. So yeah, why don't we go for that here? Because I am worried about this dinosaur coming down. Vega will trigger on our commander because we're not casting it from our hand. So that will give us some discard fodder. Draws us another card, so we can get rid of the Muldrifter. And we drew into Sky Shroud Claim. I think we're sticking with the plan of the Young Pyromancer though. Alright, so holding up the Counter Squall, I hope I did that right. Black and blue, and we've got white and black as well for the D-Spark. Probably get rid of the Sky Shroud Claim. So does our opponent swing in at us with the Uro? We're not going to be able to make a chump blocker, unfortunately. I think we need to start getting rid of players as quickly as we can though, because Sidisi's getting way too much time on us. Might get a spell that we can counter with the Counter Squall to make a chump blocker for the Uro with, assuming that this swings in at us. Definitely worried about Living Death and Rise of the Dark Realms effects from Sidisi. Alright, we see a battle from our opponent, Invasion of Amonkhet. When it enters, each player mills 3, then discards a card and you draw. So yeah, I'm not particularly interested in discarding. Let's go for the Counter Squall on that. Our opponent could be baiting us, but I want the chump blocker for the Uro anyway. So we'll discard the Sky Shroud Claim in order to jumpstart that. Young Pyromancer draws us a card. The Vega draws us a card because we're casting Counter Squall from outside of our hand. And Niv Mizzet doesn't care where we cast it from. It will just draw us a card for casting it. Yeah, Niv Mizzet Perun was a last minute call in this deck because I was worried about being able to cast it with those 3 Izzet pips, especially in a 5-colour deck, but it's proving quite good for us here. Draws us into a mana confluence. We'll just hit the Sidisi player. Vega gives us a Kolaghan's Command, which is obviously another card draw, so we ping the Sidisi again. 1/1 Elemental from Young Pyromancer. And the battle is successfully countered. Our opponent can definitely play around that, because he can obviously see the spells that we can cast from the bin, so it's sort of like playing with your hand open in a weird way. Obviously they don't know what's in our hand. Life from the Loam grabs back 3 lands. Shockland, Triland, and another Shockland. That's another 1 damage onto our opponent because it's a sorcery being cast. That's 3 damage we could have had on Uro here, but I'm not assuming that we're going to see 3 more instants and or sorceries. Drew us into Growth Spiral, by the way. So the 6/6 does swing in towards us. They'll gain 3 life and draw a card. It's noteworthy that we can use the Kolaghan's Command to bring back the Calamax if we want to. But yeah, as for now, the 1/1 jumps in the way of the Uro, which is exactly why we have these token producing effects, because we definitely want to be able to chump block if we can. Our opponent tapping down a lot of mana, but it is just the Sidisi Brood Tyrant once again. 8 cards in hand for the Sidisi player. We see milled another Shockland, a Massacre Worm, and a Savra. So they do get a zombie token. Amazingly, it looks like there's still no land for the Celestia player. That is a Tranquil Frillback. When it enters, you can pay green up to 3 times, destroy an artifact or enchantment, exile a player's graveyard. Ugh, we're seeing the graveyard hate here, unfortunately. Or they can gain life, so probably exile both of our graveyards. Luckily, we haven't thrown our big sorceries in the bin yet, but they do have 3 green floating. Not sure if they can have the same targets twice, actually. Okay, yeah, they can't do 2 graveyards by the looks of it, so blowing up the Arcane Signet, are they exiling this graveyard? That would be superb if they are. Gaining 4 life as well. And yeah, it's Sidisi's graveyard that goes into exile, that's superb, so that means that we get to keep our D-Spark and Practical Research. Yeah, I really wanted to keep these creatures in play for when we start casting these big sorceries. So that turn cycle went pretty well for us. A Cascading Cataracts is an additional land for us to play. I'm going to point a damage at Sidisi because I'm hoping that we're going to get enough damage on that to get rid of it again this turn. So let's see here. We can go for the Bring Back to Light first of all and make sure to put at least 4 colours into it because I'm going for the Archmage. And that will trigger the Young Pyromancer and the Niv Mizzet Perun. So we'll draw a card to that. We just need to hope that we don't draw into what we're tutoring for here. Okay, that's a Cosmic Rebirth to bring back a small permanent. A damage from the card draw and Niv Mizzet Perun going on to the Sidisi. And it is the Archmage Emeritus that we want for free, so that will go into exile. And then we can play it without paying the mana cost. So that draws us a card with Vega because we didn't play it from our hand, we played it from exile. And because we drew a card, Niv Mizzet Perun will ping the Sidisi out of the way. That is getting very expensive, that commander. Drew into another land in Ketria Triome, which will probably be discard fodder at this point, because we do want to hold up that D-Spark. So throw down Mana Confluence, and I think we can go for Escape to the Wilds now, making sure to hold up D-Spark mana, so draw a card to the Archmage Emeritus and another one to Niv Mizzet Perun. We make another token with the Young Pyromancer for chump blocking that Uro. And now we can get rid of a zombie token, I think we'll be fine. Drew into a Supreme Verdict for when we're desperate. And 2 board wipes next to each other, a Merciless Eviction as well. Escape to the Wilds will resolve here. So we exile a Sol Ring, a Faithful Mending, Reflecting Pool, Niv Mizzet Reborn, and a General Ferrous Rockrick. So let's drop the Reflecting Pool. How many extra lands do we get with this thing? I forget. Just 1 additional land. So we can get down the Sol Ring now, we might as well. Saves us mana next turn. And we do have until next turn to cast these exiled cards, so we can do that next turn if we want to. Drew into a 1000-Year Storm now. We'll ping the Celestia player, or the Sultai player even. And now we can finally go through to combat, so take as much damage in the air as we can against the Sidisi player, I think. Don't have a means of counter magic for countering a board wipe, so we could have that in our future, unfortunately. But if they had it, I like to think that they would have cast it last turn. Instead they cast their Sidisi into the board wipe they might have in hand. And if we decide not to go for Despark onto a big creature over here, we can always go Kolaghan's Command and grab back this Calamax. So have to discard down to hand size at the end of the turn. I think we're fine just getting rid of the Triome. So Comrade the Grim now from the graveyard player. Nothing in the graveyard, so not too worried about that unless you can set up a combo right now. Meren of Clan Neltoth, another scary one, but not with an empty bin. They exiled the Sakura Tribe Elder previously, which is a good one with that. Down to 5 cards in hand, there is an E-Witness. So Sidisi was left in the bin previously and is now going to be brought back to the hand. Alright, they've got themselves a Field of the Dead online now as well, so we've got more zombies to worry about. 6/6 swings in at us. We just chump block again. Uro is potentially going to make landfall again. And they do, so triggering the Field of the Dead once more. We do the usual, chump blocking the Uro, and that will trigger the Sir Comrade the Grim to deal a damage to each opponent. So turn 11, time to see if this Celestia player manages to get down his commander. Just going for the Great Henge instead, so we can definitely see the commander next turn. This does free up the Despark so that we can go after the Sir Comrade the Grim, which is probably going to be a good idea, I think. Could fish out the Calamax with the Kolaghan's Command or the Cosmic Rebirth. We could blow up the Great Henge with this as well, which might have this player scoop, but yeah, I think that might be a more intelligent plan. So yeah, at the end of the turn we'll go for the Kolaghan's Command. We'll destroy an artifact and return a creature from graveyard to hand. Grab ourselves back the Calamax. Monastery Mentor could be better, so that we can get more and more chump blockers into play, but whatever, we'll do this. Seeing as how we're having such a fun game here, going after the Great Henge as well, of course. So Archmage Emeritus going to draw us a card, Young Pyromancer makes another token, and Niv Mizzet will draw us as well. So not going to deal damage to any other creatures until we can get rid of Meren, and the Sir Comrade, I think, will land damage on our opponent. Drew into Winggrace's Judgment, by the way. And the Archmage draws us some discard fodder in Farseek. Ping our opponent again. Alright, now over to our turn, we'll see what crazy stuff we can do here. I'm looking at this 1000 Year Storm. Not sure how many instants and sorceries we'll be able to play into it straight away. Alright, draw into Rakdos Charm, which is a cheap instant. Ping the Meren. Or maybe if we're going to copy a bunch of instants and sorceries, we don't have to bother pointing removal at these. We can just go for our opponent's face. So yeah, let's get down the 1000 Year Storm first of all. Then we can play the Cascading Cataracts. I'm just going to kind of wing it here, I think. Blue mana and white mana off the Exotic Orchard can be the Faithful Mending for the first instant and or sorcery. And obviously we're going to draw a bunch here. We've only got 4 to 6 cards left in the library, so we do need to be careful as the game progresses. But 1000 Year Storm will not give us a copy of the Faithful Mending. Vega draws us, Archmage draws us, Niv Mizzet draws us, which means we're getting 3 pings here. So they can go onto Sidisi directly. Drew into a Bedevil as well. And there is a Dovin's Veto also, which is always good to have up. Niv Mizzet Perun pointed at our opponent again. We haven't even had the Faithful Mending resolve yet. So we draw and discard 2. Let's get rid of the Farseek. I think Calamax is just going to be too slow, so I just spent a turn fishing it out, but we'll discard it again. We do have Anger in the deck, but obviously haven't drawn into it to discard it and give all of our stuff haste, which would be useful with Calamax. Don't have any other means of tapping it other than swinging in. Calamax hitting the bin will trigger Sir Comrade the Grim to deal damage to us. So then let's go for Growth Spiral, just for the sake of getting more lands into play, and obviously triggering more card draw and ping effects. And we will get copies of the Growth Spiral thanks to the 1000 Year Storm. So we get a copy of the Growth Spiral, which triggered the Archmage to draw us another card. So yeah, I think we're definitely going to have Sidisi here. Draw to the copy of the Growth Spiral. And we can shock the Overgrown Tomb into play, I think. We've obviously got damage in the air here as well, 12 damage that we can swing in at our opponents, so yeah, there's our Field of the Dead. We'll be able to start triggering and getting creatures. I'll probably get that into play here with the original Growth Spiral. So a token comes down on Field of the Dead. We've met that caveat well and truly. Take our opponent down to 12, which means we've got exactly enough in the air now, so we can start concentrating on the Celestia player. So go through to combat, and down goes Sidisi. Big thank you for playing that out. The Sidisi player being a great sport, and yeah, so's the Ghalta player actually, because hasn't really done much of anything this game after being slowed down so much. So I think we're fine to go for the Growth Spiral again so that we can get more lands into play. Discard the Merciless Eviction to that, because we are jump starting it, which obviously means a bunch more card draw for us. We'll get 3 copies of the Growth Spiral this time, thanks to the 1000-year Elixir. Draw to Niv Mizzet, Vega and Archmage again. And there we see the Shark Typhoon, which should see us end the game quite quickly if we can get haste into our graveyard. So 3 Growth Spirals, we'll get down a Savannah with one of them. Not sure I'll be able to get rid of my opponent here, but we'll give it a good try. 31 cards left in the deck, so like I said before, need to be careful that we don't kill ourselves off here. Shocking the Temple Garden. And there we see the Anger. We've got the World Tree in hand now as well, so we'll get that out with the original Growth Spiral. And that fixes all the colours of our lands, so we can do pretty much anything we want now. 28 cards left in the deck, our opponent's on 23 life, so should be able to get our opponent here, I think. So we'll just play the Faithful Mending from the bin for 2 mana with Jumpstart, and that way we can discard the Anger, and we'll be able to make use of mana from the Bloom Tender as well, because it will have haste. And we'll get a bunch of copies of the Faithful Mending here, of course, thanks to the enchantment, drawing to the usual creature suspects. Alright, so there are the 3 copies of the Faithful Mending. Each one will draw us a card with the Archmage Emeritus, because it does count as casting those, although I think this is copy that it cares about. Whenever you cast or copy, yeah, obviously the 1000-year Storm copies. So the Archmage sees that. So the last minute edition of Niv Mizzet Perun turned out to be a really good include apparently, because we've just won the game with it. Decided to save the targets and auto yield on the Niv Mizzet Perun to try and speed things up, because my opponent's been incredibly patient here. Unfortunately that can lag the client and make it crash sometimes, so we have to be careful of that. Well, I think it's safe to say that we've got this. Just discarding lands to the Faithful Mendings. Okay, so what can we cast here that's quite safe? Yeah, 2 damage to any target and make a treasure. We can do that a bunch of times, can't we? So 2 damage to our opponent and a treasure token should be fine. Point that at our opponent, and it's same old. Cantrip to the creatures. Make a creature with the Young Pyromancer. And 1000-year Storm is going to make 4 or 5 copies of this now, which will be damage enough to get our opponent. So yeah, our opponent, that is fair enough. Our opponent was more than patient there, but the copies alone on the Prismari command is enough to take our opponent out. So massive thank you to the 2 remaining players there. They showed great patience, especially towards the end. If you want to see more from this deck, then be sure to share it with your friends and give it a like. I'm tribalkai. Thank you for watching.